All right, so today we're diving into something a little different.
Okay.
Something that might hit a little close to home for a lot of you out there.
Interesting.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about how political differences can impact our closest relationships.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's with partners or family or friends, you might be tuning in because of something you've experienced personally.
Sure.
Or maybe you're just curious about this whole dynamic.
Yeah.
So we've got a stack of articles and research to unpack.
Right.
And our mission here is not to tell you what to think or how to fix things, but really to help you understand what's going on beneath the surface.
So kind of a deep dive into...
Exactly, a deep dive.
Okay, cool.
And what I'm seeing across all these sources is it's not just about disagreeing on policies.
Yeah.
These disagreements can trigger some serious emotional fallout.
It's so true.
Yeah, and it seems like political clashes can create stress, tension, even resentment.
Oh, yeah.
In our closest relationships.
Definitely.
So I'm curious,
Yeah.
what is it about politics that makes it so emotionally charged?
Well, one key factor is this concept of polarization.
Okay.
As our political views become more extreme, we become less willing to even consider alternative perspectives.
Yeah.
So imagine two magnets with the same poles facing each other.
Okay.
They repel.
They push each other away.
Right. It's like that with people, too. We end up pushing each other away instead of having productive conversations.
So instead of finding common ground, we just dig our heels in and feel like our entire identity is under attack.
Exactly. And that feeling of being attacked can lead to a communication breakdown.
Right.
Our sources show that political debates often devolve into misunderstandings and frustration because people just stop listening to each other.
Oh, I've definitely experienced that.
Yeah.
It's like you're speaking completely different languages. One of the researchers actually put it this way, and I'm paraphrasing here, but they basically said that when people get defensive or dismissive during political discussions, it becomes almost impossible to have a constructive conversation.
Absolutely. That resonates with what I'm seeing in the research, too.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the words we're using. It's also about a loss of empathy.
Okay.
We stop seeing the other person's perspective and experiences as valid.
Which makes sense when you consider how deeply our political beliefs are tied to our values and who we are at our core.
Right.
So if someone dismisses your political views, it can feel like they're rejecting a fundamental part of you.
Absolutely. And this can be particularly challenging in relationships where there are already power imbalances.
Interesting.
So think about it. If one person feels very strongly about certain political issues and the other doesn't, it can create tension when making decisions as a couple.
Got it.
Or even as a family.
So it's not just about hurt feelings. No. It can have real-world consequences for how decisions are made.
Exactly.
And who holds more sway in the relationship. And our sources suggest that those power dynamics can play out in our social circles, too.
Right.
Imagine a group of friends where everyone has a completely different political views.
Okay.
Could that lead to some friends feeling excluded or marginalized?
Absolutely. Political views can shape our social landscapes, influencing everything from where we choose to hang out to what we feel comfortable talking about.
So it's like our political beliefs start defining our entire social universe.
It can feel like that sometimes.
And speaking of influences, it seems like the sources are pointing to a bigger force at play here.
Okay.
The role of our upbringing, our cultural background, and even the media we consume.
It's so fascinating how all of these factors come together to shape our worldview.
Yeah.
You know, we're all products of our environments, and those environments can create echo chambers where our existing beliefs are constantly being reinforced. So think about it. If you grew up in a family where everyone holds the same political views, it's natural to assume that those views are the correct ones.
Right. It makes me wonder how much of what we believe is truly our own independent thinking.
Yeah.
Versus what we've absorbed from our surroundings.
Right.
Is there even a way to separate the two?
It's tough.
Yeah.
And it becomes even more complex when you factor in the influence of media.
Right.
In today's world, we're bombarded with information from all sides.
Yeah.
And it can be difficult to discern what's objective truth versus what's biased reporting.
Especially with social media.
Yes.
It's like everyone's shouting their opinions, and it is easy to get trapped in an echo chamber where you only see information that confirms your existing biases.
Right.
We talked about the echo chamber effect earlier.
Yeah.
But this is like an echo chamber on steroids.
Right. And that can create real challenges in relationships, especially if each partner is getting their news from drastically different sources. That presents completely different versions of reality. It's like you're living in two separate worlds.
So we've got this potent cocktail of personal experiences, cultural influences, and media shaping our political beliefs, often without us even realizing it.
That's right.
And then we bring all that baggage into our relationships. No wonder things can get messy.
It's a recipe for friction, for sure, but before we spiral into despair, it's important to remember that our sources do offer some glimmers of hope.
Okay.
They suggest several coping mechanisms that relationships can use to navigate these turbulent waters.
All right.
And one that comes up frequently is agreeing to disagree.
That seems straightforward enough.
Sure.
But is it really a sustainable solution?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
While agreeing to disagree might offer some temporary relief, it could just be a Band-Aid solution if the underlying issues are never addressed.
Okay.
Think of it this way. If you and your partner have fundamentally different views on something as important as, say, climate change.
Simply agreeing to disagree might not be enough.
Right.
Those differences could resurface in other areas of your life, like how you choose to live, how you raise your children, or even how you spend your money.
So it's not a magic bullet.
It's not a cure-all.
It sounds like it's more about choosing your battles wisely.
Yeah.
And figuring out which disagreements are worth hashing out and which ones are best left alone.
Right.
Are there other approaches that might be more effective in the long run?
Absolutely. Another approach that's highlighted in the research is focusing on compromise and empathy.
Okay. I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
It seems like that approach acknowledges that both people have valid perspectives.
Exactly.
And that it's about finding a way to meet in the middle.
That's right.
Tell me more.
Well, it's about shifting the focus from winning the argument to understanding the other person's point of view.
Gotcha.
Instead of trying to prove them wrong, you're actively trying to understand their motivations, their fears, their hopes. That requires a lot of self-awareness and emotional intelligence, though, right?
Absolutely.
It's not easy to put aside your own ego and truly listen to someone you disagree with.
It's definitely a skill that takes practice.
Yeah.
And it's not about agreeing with everything they say.
Sure.
It's about acknowledging that their feelings are valid, even if you don't share their perspective.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Okay.
It's not about avoiding difficult conversations altogether.
Right.
It's about approaching those conversations with a different mindset.
Exactly.
With curiosity rather than judgment.
Yes.
With empathy rather than hostility.
I love that.
And that leads us to another approach that our sources discuss.
Okay.
Establishing boundaries.
That's right. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do for a relationship is to set some ground rules around political discussions.
Interesting.
For example, you might agree to avoid talking about politics at family gatherings.
Okay.
Or you might set aside specific times to discuss these topics calmly and respectfully.
It's almost like creating a safe space for those conversations.
Exact.
So they don't spill over into other areas of the relationship and create unnecessary tension.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that political disagreements don't have to dominate your entire relationship.
Sure.
There's room for other conversations, other shared experiences, other aspects of your connection.
So we've got these three potential approaches.
Okay.
Agreeing to disagree, compromise, and empathy, and establishing boundaries. It's interesting to think about which of these approaches might be most effective in different situations.
Definitely.
I'm wondering, though, even with the best intentions, can relationships truly thrive when there are these significant political differences?
That's a big question, and one that we'll explore in more depth in the next part of our Dip Dive.
I can't wait.
Me too. You know, picking up where we left off, it makes you wonder if it's even possible for relationships to truly thrive when those involved have completely opposite political stances.
Yeah, I'm still grappling with that question.
Yeah.
On one hand, our sources suggest that those differences can erode relationships over time, especially if those beliefs are really deeply intertwined with someone's identity.
Right.
But then I think about couples and friend groups I know who seem to make it work, despite their differing political views.
Yeah.
What's the secret sauce there?
Well, one key factor that keeps popping up in the research is this idea of shared values.
Okay.
Now, I'm not talking about political values, but rather those fundamental beliefs about life, morality, family,
Right.
kind of the bedrock principles that shape how we see the world.
So it's less about agreeing on which candidate to vote for and more about those deeper underlying values
Exactly.
that guide our decisions and relationships. Things like honesty, kindness, integrity, a sense of fairness.
Precisely.
Those types of things.
When couples or friends share those core values, it creates a sense of alignment and understanding that can help them navigate political differences more effectively. It's like having a shared compass that points you in the same general direction, even if you take slightly different paths to get there.
That makes sense if you're on the same page about the big stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe those political disagreements feel less threatening to the overall relationship.
Right.
It's like, okay, we might not see eye to eye on this particular issue, but we're ultimately striving for the same things in life.
Exactly. And there's research to back that up.
Oh, really?
Studies show that couples who share similar values tend to be happier and more satisfied in their relationships.
Interesting.
They're more likely to communicate, effectively resolve conflicts constructively, and support each other through thick and thin.
So shared values are like a buffer.
Yeah.
Helping to absorb some of the shockwaves from those political disagreements.
That's a great way to put it.
But I'm guessing it takes more than just shared values to navigate those choppy waters.
You're absolutely right. Another crucial ingredient, and one that's emphasized throughout our sources, is emotional intelligence.
Ah, yes. That ability to understand and manage your own emotions, as well as empathize with the emotions of others.
Exactly.
It seems like that would be essential in any relationship.
It is.
But especially when dealing with something as potentially divisive as politics.
Absolutely. When you have a high level of emotional intelligence, you're less likely to react defensively or lash out when someone challenges your political views. You're able to stay calm, listen attentively, and try to see the situation from their perspective.
Instead of seeing it as a personal attack, you're able to detach a little and recognize that their beliefs are coming from a different place, a different set of experiences.
Exactly. And that ability to empathize, to see the world through someone else's eyes, can be incredibly powerful in bridging those political divides.
It sounds like it's about being more curious than combative.
Yeah.
Asking questions like, what has led you to believe this? Or help me understand where you're coming from.
Spot on.
That kind of approach, right?
Yeah. And along with emotional intelligence, creating a safe space for open and honest communication is paramount.
Okay.
If people don't feel like they can express their thoughts and feelings freely without fear of judgment or retaliation, it's going to create a breeding ground for resentment and distrust.
It's like trying to have a rational conversation in the middle of a hurricane.
I like that analogy.
You need that sense of calm, that foundation of trust to even begin to understand each other.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And while open communication is vital, our sources also highlight the importance of shared experiences and activities as a way to strengthen relationships.
So I'm picturing things like traveling together.
Yes.
Volunteering in the community, maybe even just enjoying a hobby together.
You nailed it.
Are those the types of shared experiences you're referring to?
These shared experiences, especially positive ones, create a tapestry of memories and shared moments that can help to solidify the bond between people.
It's like weaving a stronger fabric for the relationship.
I love that analogy.
Something that can withstand the occasional snag or tear.
And it's important to remember that relationships are constantly evolving.
Right.
What works for you today might not work 5 years from now.
So it's not about finding a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
It's about being adaptable and willing to adjust your approach as needed.
It's about recognizing that relationships, like politics, are dynamic and ever-changing.
And maybe that's the key takeaway here.
Okay.
It's not about pretending that those political differences don't exist.
Yeah.
Or trying to force everyone to think the same way.
Right.
It's about acknowledging those differences and finding a way to coexist peacefully, respectfully, and maybe even find some common ground along the way.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into navigating political differences in relationships.
Wow, it's gone by fast.
It really has.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the emotional fallout of those disagreements to the importance of shared values and emotional intelligence.
Right.
But, you know, after all that heavy stuff, I'm actually feeling a sense of hope.
Really?
It seems like even the most politically divided couples and friend groups can find ways to not just survive, but actually thrive.
That's a good point.
I'm glad you're feeling that way.
Yeah.
And it's true. The research paints a more nuanced picture than we might initially assume. It's not a foregone conclusion that political differences will inevitably doom a relationship.
Right.
It's more about how we choose to approach those differences.
Exactly.
Right? As we've discussed, there are tools and strategies we can use to manage those disagreements.
Yes.
And even strengthen our connections in the process.
Absolutely.
But I keep coming back to that question you posed earlier.
Okay.
If political values are just one piece of the puzzle, what are those other pieces that make for strong, lasting relationships?
It's a question worth pondering.
It is.
And while our sources don't offer a definitive answer,
Right.
because let's face it, relationships are complex.
They are.
They do offer some valuable insights.
Okay. I'm all ears. What have you gleaned from all this research?
Well, one theme that emerges is the importance of a shared sense of purpose.
Okay.
This could be something grand, like working towards a common goal, or advocating for a cause you both believe in.
Right.
Or it could be something simpler,
Right.
like building a family together,
Gotcha.
or creating a cozy, loving home environment.
So it's about having a shared vision for the future.
Yeah.
Something that gives your relationship meaning and direction beyond the day-to-day political squabbles.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that you're on the same team,
Right.
even if you don't always agree on the playbook.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we might disagree on how to get there, but ultimately we're both striving for the same destination.
Uh-huh.
And I imagine that shared sense of purpose can be a powerful motivator to work through those disagreements.
Absolutely. And another factor that's consistently highlighted in the research is the role of humor and playfulness.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, sometimes you just need to laugh about the absurdity of it all.
Exactly. Being able to laugh together to find moments of joy and lightheartedness
Yeah.
can be a powerful antidote to the seriousness and intensity of political debates.
Right.
It can help to diffuse tension, remind you of the bigger picture,
Yeah.
and reinforce the idea that your relationship is about more than just politics.
It's about those moments of connection, those shared experiences that make life richer and more meaningful.
Right. And along with humor, our sources also emphasize the importance of acceptance.
Acceptance of what their differing political views.
Well, that's part of it, but it goes deeper than that.
Okay.
It's about accepting the other person for who they are.
Yeah.
Flaws and all.
Right.
It's about recognizing that you're not going to change their mind about everything.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
So it's about letting go of the need to be right all the time.
Exactly. It's about shifting your focus from trying to convert them to your way of thinking,
Got it.
to simply appreciating them for the unique individual they are.
That's a powerful shift in perspective.
It is.
It's about recognizing that diversity of thought can actually enrich a relationship, even if it sometimes leads to disagreements.
Right. It's about embracing those differences as opportunities for growth and learning.
And maybe that's the ultimate key to navigating political differences in relationships.
Yeah.
It's not about finding a way to eliminate those differences,
Right.
but rather finding a way to embrace them as part of the rich tapestry of your connection.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
It's about remembering that relationships are a journey, not a destination.
Right.
There will be bumps along the road. There will be detours and disagreements.
Yeah.
But as long as you have that shared sense of purpose, that willingness to communicate openly and respectfully, and that deep foundation of love and acceptance,
Right.
you can navigate those challenges together and come out stronger on the other side.
And that's a really heartening thought, especially in today's world where it feels like everything is so polarized and divisive. It's a reminder that we're all human beings with complex thoughts, feelings, and experiences.
Yeah.
And that those differences don't have to tear us apart.
Right.
They can actually make us stronger, more resilient, and more compassionate individuals.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought to ponder.
Okay.
If you could choose one quality or value to prioritize in your relationships, what would it be and why?
I like that.
Think about it. Maybe even discuss it with your loved ones.
Yeah.
It could be a simple exercise, but it might just spark some meaningful conversations
Right.
and deepen your connections in unexpected ways.
That's a wonderful challenge. Thanks for joining us on this journey, everyone.
Thank you.
And remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep connecting.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.